What's going on, everybody? It is episode number 48 of Truth Will Set You Free here on this beautiful 420. It's a very green day outside, especially if you are in Japan with Sunni. Anyways, moving on. We have a really good show to talk about. Obviously, the world is different every week as we go. Everything changes. The world is different. The shit is somehow boiling over, making it worse, and there is a major decision today. So we're going to be talking about that once we get the show started. We'll talk about Maxine Waters. We're going to be talking about Adam Toledo and this whole, murder charge, murder conviction, etc. And where do we go from here as a country, and to discuss our opinions on it, talk about the logic, talk about the truth, and what the media may not be saying. So we encourage you guys to make comments and decide. Talk about it. Share this. Again, this is a political show, so it's a little bit dicey. We know how that is. But we've got Casey with us, Sunni the middle child, and some very special guests from Liberty Revolt Media. So we're going to get started in 30 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Truth Will Set You Free. Share it out there. What's going on, everybody? I am Anthony Russo from BetheChange. Very excited to have you guys here. It looks like we have a smaller than usual amount of people watching. I want you guys to share it. We have this, of course, on YouTube and on Facebook. So hit that share button, hit the like button, start making comments. Let's trick that algorithm so we can see us get up to those 300-400 person numbers like usual. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining. Again, the whole purpose of this is trying to find some truth in the media, trying to find the conversation that actually will move us closer to change and maybe a middle ground understanding. So as usual, we've got a great cast with us. We've got Casey and Sunni. What's going on, y'all?
I think I'm muted.
Nope, you're good. I hear you.
What's going on?
What?
Do we really want to know what's going on?
We do.
No,
we need to know.
Yeah.
Casey doesn't, but I do.
It's a lovely world. It's a lovely world.
It's a whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff on this episode. Also, for you guys joining, Cash and I have been going back and forth a little bit about what's going on today. And I'm going to read a relatively sizable note from him and what his whole opinion on everything going on in the world, including what just happened. So please share this video out there. I did this last week and it worked. So at the count of 3, I need everybody to share this video. So we're going to do a countdown. Casey, so are you going to start with the 1? Are we doing 3 or 1? 3 or 1? 3. Let's do 3. Starting with 3. Going big, going down. 3. Count of 3. Share it. 3, 2, 1. Share this out there. Hit the like button.
And we're going to be able to tell. So don't be lying and say you shared when you didn't. All right.
Sunni will hunt you down. She will literally go to your house.
They're going to call it fake news.
Good job. I see the numbers going up. That's great. If you guys want to support us, we actually do now have everything working with YouTube. So if you guys want to do super chat, more than willing to. And then I always put this on the bottom. And as you guys always know, I prefer Patreons over anything else because then you guys get a little bit extra, motivational Mondays, all the different stuff that I do. Excellent. We've got some really cool guests this week. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. And then we're going to get right into the topics. I'm going to get it started with probably discussing the George Floyd trial, the Chauvin trial, and we'll go from there. But let's get our guests on the show. These are gentlemen that know Casey quite well, I believe, or he's been following them. Either way, he brought them on, and I've watched a couple of their things, and they have a great take on things. Not full conservatives, but we'll let them introduce themselves to the show. We've got Cole and Bucky from Liberty Revolt Media. What's going on, brother?
How's it going, everybody? I like your introduction of us as not full conservatives, so everybody knows where we stand right away.
Hey, we're not full. We're definitely not full Republicans in any way, shape, or form. Everybody knows that Casey is everybody's favorite libertarian. So
Yeah.
Absolutely,
For sure.
yeah, certainly mine.
yeah. So tell us, either Bucky or Cole, tell us a little bit about what Liberty Revolt Media is, and a little bit about your show and what you guys do.
Well, the Liberty Revolt was founded on strategies to engage in the culture war and to develop a better understanding of policy and its ramifications. So it started out when I got a job at an AM radio station. I was working one day, and I really liked to listen to some, conservative libertarian podcasts here and there. And one day, a coworker of mine turns on this AM radio, and he turned it to a real patriot station. I mean, an old right patriot kind of station, hardcore libertarians, abolish the government period kind of libertarians. And he's like, you want to listen to some real right wingers? He turns it on, and the first thing I hear is this Alex Jones death metal song. I'm like, what is this? And then they came on and they started talking about how JP Morgan sank the Titanic to help establish the Federal Reserve. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. So I called in and I was like, I would like to do a show. And at the time, I was really just looking for a better platform to start articulating my opinions publicly and to force myself to really deep dive into policy and its issues. So I hopped right in, and then I was like, gosh, I've never tried to monologue for several hours at a time. I need someone who could just talk out their rear end endlessly. Who do I know who stirs crap up and just spews polemic all day, every day? Oh, hey, Cole Masters. So I gave him a call.
Wow.
Him and I've been I was like, this guy will throw a Molotov at anything. So I gave him a call, and I told him to come hop on the radio on me, and let's bash government, let's bash Congress, and let's be rowdy. And that's kind of how it started.
Love it. And so you guys fit more under the libertarian category, correct?
It depends on the day, honestly.
Depends on the day.
I would say if we honestly do flip-flop quite a bit. We've gone from, bashing Antifa and getting doxxed by them to, like, praising their resolve for going out in the street the next day. So, we really we like to get into different niches and explore the topics from both sides and then kind of land on something. But libertarianism has been certainly at the top of our radar lately. We've been going a lot harder on that. So we'll see where it leads.
Ultimately, the cool part about what you guys are talking about is when you go from libertarian to conservative, we realize there's a lot of flaws with libertarians, huge flaws in the Republican Party. There is this third niche that's forming that is this kind of maritage between conservatarian or something. It's in the middle because the conservative group has issues with the way the old Republicans are still doing business and ignoring some of the major issues, and they don't speak to younger people. They don't speak to people. They're not speaking to the people like this group, like Casey and I specifically, that get called racists, and just because they're white, not because they're trying to help. They're literally a group trying to help. So I think that's huge, and we do. And what you guys don't know that Casey might have said, I was a lifelong full-blown Democrat until 2012, 2013. And then I just started to change as I learned a little bit more about the economy and a little bit more of my biggest issue wasn't even the economy. It was how I started learning, but it's the hypocrisy in politics that caused me to start having a different belief system. So
yeah, I was a Bernie bro.
Oh, were you? No shit. Really?
Hard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Back in the day, I was basically a leftist in high school. I remember walking up to my football coach and saying, "Have you ever read Karl Marx?" My football coach. That didn't go over well for me, but it gives you some perspective on how I think we've all flipped in one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have this tendency of just being anti whoever I'm around. So when I joined this radio station, I went in, I was feeling really conservative at the time. And they are all just good old boys. They ain't masking. They ain't vaccinating. They're not having any of it. They hate the government. This is a radio station that got famous. Remember when the FBI had the 81-day standoff with the Montana Free Men? The Montana Free Boys were calling in to my radio station as their link to the outside world. They were They were in the loop with the Ruby Ridge stuff. They were in the loop with the Waco stuff. They've been anti-government hard for a while. And I got in there, and all of a sudden I started feeling this progressive spirit start welling up inside of me. And I started just taking the pro-mask stance because I had to, because everyone else at the station was so vehemently anti-mask that I was just like, I have to. I can't fit in a box with these people. And then I went and worked in Lafayette for a little bit, and I was seeing people jogging down the street by themselves wearing 2 masks, and was like, yeah, I need to go home to KHNC. These people are stupid. And it just seems to me that no matter where I go, I have a tendency of just taking the opposition no matter what.
So it's interesting you say that. Before we get into the topics, and Suni and Casey have heard me talk about this quite a bit. I'm reading the book Think Again by Adam Grant. And the chapter that I just finished was all about being the positivity or the positive aspect of being disagreeable. Those that are disagreeable are actually the ones that help lead to creating change in conversation. If you are the person that isn't willing to have the hard conversations, you're not going to lead anywhere positive. And actually the ones that are the most disagreeable are actually the ones that care most about the people around them. So Bucky, I feel as though you and I are very similar in that instance. So let's get the show started. I'm gonna have Suni take it once I go over this first topic. I want to talk obviously about the George Floyd, Derek Chauvin trial. As everybody knows, the whole world knows today because it's been celebrated, when in all reality, in my opinion, you look at it, you go, a man was unjustly killed by the police and a version of justice was served. It's up to the jury makers. Could there have been some tampering with the fact that the media has not shut up about it, and the fact that we had Maxine Waters and Biden essentially threaten them into making it? There's a case for that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a sad case. It's one of very few that happen yearly, based on the way you look at unarmed men, black men being killed by police. And today, until there's an appeal, justice was technically served. So the question becomes, when they are talking about the verdict, they are calling George Floyd a hero. Pelosi actually made a huge gaffe and said, thank you, George Floyd, for dying, or thank you, George Floyd, for being a martyr, because she is an absolute cluster F of a human being. But the way that they're talking about him is he has created all of this massive change. And in my opinion, I don't see the change that they're talking about. I see a world that is $3 billion less tax dollars from all of the damage done. I see 20 plus people killed. There's more people killed during the riots than there has been unarmed black men in the last calendar year. So I don't see what happened to George Floyd as positive change. I don't see either of them as heroes, and I don't see either of them as decent human beings, because neither of them deserve to be in the position that they were in. Personal opinion. I know Suni just blacked out, so I will go to, unless Suni's ready on this one, Casey, go for it. What do you think about that? I know you and I have talked about it a little bit.
Oh, this one's tough. My biggest thing with this, I believe the jury was tainted. I don't see it was fit. I just don't. I wish there was a sequesterization, however you say it, a sequester for the jury early on, so we can make a good decision. I think 2 nights ago, when Maxine Waters was showing up at the police station in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, really started to taint it by saying that we won't stop even if there is a just trial. No, that doesn't set a good stage for me, and so I'm annoyed.
It makes it unclear. It makes it obvious that our politicians don't understand the way the legal system works and how dangerous that actually was. Not just from a standpoint of creating and inciting violence, dangerous for being a potential for a mistrial. And if you don't think that's not going to be used in the appeal, you're insane. That's going to be used drastically in the appeal, and it's going to be used heavily, because the fact that there was not a fully sequestered jury up until a certain point, it's dangerous. Bucky or Cole, who wants to go next on this one? What's your opinions on the outcome of this trial?
I'll jump in on this one. So, actually, Casey, I do agree with you that there should have been a more full sequestering of the jury, but at the same time, I don't feel like it would have made that much of a difference simply because of how much George Floyd, how much coverage he's gotten over the past few years. Now, I'm a little bit skeptical of police trials ever since. Can you guys remind me of the officer in Arizona who shot that white guy for being drunk?
I know.
No one remembers white guys getting shot. We all know.
Yeah, of course not. But anyways, they didn't even show the video. They had a sequestered jury in that, but during the trial of this cop for murder, they didn't even show the video of him killing the guy, which is basically him like, get on your knees, and the guy's like, okay, I'll get on my knees, and then he kills him. So, the jury in this case didn't even have all the evidence, and it seems to have turned that way. In many police trials, this happens. So it's so hard to walk that line between, like, how much do we sequester them and how much do we trust that the rest of the people in the legal system are going to introduce fair evidence into the trial. At least as far as police being tried, usually it goes on the side of the cop. So for me, it seems okay. Just because dude was everywhere. George Floyd, I mean, he was painted on every wall I saw in every city I went to in 2020.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one of the things in the assistant attorney general, I think Jerry Blackwell, the district assistant, whatever, when he came on, and they're using this as a platform for change, which great. And I agree that this should be a moment to reflect, look at the potential for changing policing to a point, because they're placing all of the blame on the police instead of realizing that policemen need to be better. And also realizing that criminals need to realize what their risks are, and they're creating fear, unfortunately, just in black people. And in the way that you look at it, it's already putting them into another box. To me, it's the newest form of slavery, is to create such a danger by mentally enslaving them that they are always in fear of their lives. They have to run. They have to fight the police. And saying that they could go home at any given point and they might get killed by a police officer. To me, that's incredibly dangerous. And they use, to me, the logic behind it that is completely flawed is they talk about the 15 deaths. They rattled them. Jerry Blackwell, he rattled them off. He talked about the Sandra Bland, talked about, name them. He went through Riot even. He talked about the most recent with Adam Toledo. He talked about Michael Brown. He said all of them. They've got them all in order. They remember exactly how to spout them off. And to me, that boggles my mind is that is less than 15 names that they can come up with and rattle off. And that's not even 1/100th of how many people have died in inner city communities due to black on black violence in the last year. And it seems like it's completely missing the point. Suni just shared the video of the 7-year-old getting killed in a McDonald's parking lot that we don't hear about. Is the police issue? Is there a policing issue? There's always going to be an issue because we have human beings that are police. And if we continue to raise tempers and raise this fuel that police are in the rug, it's scary. It's super scary to me. Cole, what's your thought process when it comes to over and over reciting the names of the 10 to 15 recognizable black Americans that have died?
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I'm with y'all on this because these people, for the most part, aren't heroes. I mean, first off, a hero is made by his actions and not the lack of being able to take an action. And I'm sorry, being killed by the police is not a heroic action, and it can't be a heroic action because it wasn't something that you chose to do. Heroism comes out of the actions that you yourself can take, with a choice. So if you have no choice, first off, you can't be a hero. Second off, it's a rhetorical thing. It's like if we said, 100,000 people just got murdered over here in this state because of this thing. People are like, man, 100,000, that doesn't mean anything to me. Names mean things to people. Paintings on walls mean things to people. Our little ape brains look at people and they say, that guy was a person. But we hear 100,000 people dead and we're like, oh, that's a number. So in my opinion, it's all rhetorical. And what can be heroic about a person who hasn't done anything that is necessarily ever been considered heroic when we look at the very definition of the word? I mean, that may sound callous, but buy a dictionary and then tell me it is.
Yeah. And I've almost, in a way, and I'm going to use the word delicately, I almost see Chauvin, who I do not think is a good man. I don't think he was a good police officer. I see him as kind of the martyr in this one, whether he wanted to be or not. And I'm torn because I heard this even on television earlier, on news earlier, where they said, for the better of the country, it's probably better that he got the worst charges. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I felt that way. And I know that they shunned him on Fox News for saying that. But I was like, you know what? It's dangerous, but it's also good. So the positive is we're about to see tonight how people react. Will they react with celebratory riots, or will they march until it's time to go home and it's over? Or is this a continuation of the same bullshit we continue to see? And it's a rhetoric that scares me, and I don't know how to take it, because in half of me says I'm glad because at least maybe the country won't burn down. Half of me says this sets a precedent for policing that is dangerous to the greater good for the rest of time. Suni, I know you just hopped back on, but what are your thoughts about, do you feel he deserved that, or he deserved the verdict? Muted.
Talking about Derek Chauvin, right?
Yeah, sorry.
I do feel like 2 of the charges were justified. Because he contributed to his death just as much as George Floyd did. And the way he acted was completely negligent. Like, he completely bombed his job as an officer that day. The only one I disagree with is the 3rd-degree murder. I don't really understand how that's still I get why they threw all the charges, and I get why they found him guilty of all 3, because they want to charge him with the most serious one. But like you said, at this point, we're playing to the public on how we move with our justice system. People are afraid of how the public's going to react. So let's just go ahead and give him guilty on all 3, when he's only guilty of the first 2 charges. The 3rd-degree murder, you just seemed like you just threw that in there. And they added a lot of these charges with modifiers. If you notice when the judge was reading the charges off, I actually wrote them down. The first count was unintentional 2nd-degree murder while committing a felony. What? Did you murder the person, or did you do it unintentionally? Like, which one is it? So the first 2 charges, I'm cool with. I feel like the justice system worked. I really do. But the 3rd-degree murder while perpetrating an imminent dangerous act, I don't understand how we come to that.
And that's where I think that it was led by the masses. It was mob mentality to make sure that everything was found guilty. And again, that is where, and what I just said before you came on, Suni, was part of me is okay with that, because hopefully it leads to a little bit of peace. But that is also the opposite of standing for what you believe in. Like, I'm okay to let this slide, and and in law, these can be brought back up. In the case of Chauvin versus the state, it's going to come up, and that can be used in a future case, that maybe it's a cop that never made a mistake. For example, the cop that shot Adam Toledo, he has an exemplary record, no warnings, no nothing. Who knows if they can use this case against him? Because after seeing every bit of footage, I stand 100% behind that police officer that made that split-second decision at 2:30 in the morning when they saw a butt of a gun. It's a horrible situation. But we're only placing ownership in the police officer and not the perpetrators, not the criminals. And I think that's such a backwards way of looking at society. Casey, you got any opinions on that?
Well, no, but I want to hear Bucky's thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead.
My thoughts are, I think this is an example where a lot of people did things wrong. But what really worries me, because here's the truth, guys, I barely followed the trial. But it seems to me as though we are bending a fair and honest justice system to fit the narrative, to bend it to the perception of the masses to appease them. And is that a good thing? I mean, the state is only empowered if it can get somewhat majority consent of the public, whether that be through active, enthusiastic support or just through passive, lack of interest. But, we have a situation here where obviously things could have been different on the part of the police officer. But at the same time, I think we should extend a little extra grace to police officers in a situation like this, because they have to deal with the worst aspects of society. And it's unfortunate because here I am, a libertarian who thinks that the government is nothing but a predator, parasite leeching off of the public. And these police officers, these police officers are nothing more than the enforcement of that predatory state. But we're here because what have we done? We've disarmed the citizens, and now we're arresting them for what? Counterfeiting money and being high? Counterfeiting money like the Federal Reserve does every day? I mean, a lot of these laws on the books shouldn't really be laws in the first place. So, I'm not defending George Floyd.
But they are laws, though. Until they're changed, that's the thing. They are laws.
So are we trying to live in like a lawless society where like anything goes? You use a counterfeit 20, bro,
every
you're going
law,
to jail.
every regulation, every tax is ultimately backed by the threat of gun violence. How does the government enforce its laws? By the threat of jailhouse or bayonet. So let's carefully consider why are we allowing these laws to exist in the first place?
But Suni brought up a really good point. Suni, finish your point on that. That was a good question.
Should we just live in an anarchic state?
I mean, that's what it sounds like a lot of people are implying. They're like, well, the government gets away with this, so why can't I? Well, you know what? The government is above our head at that point. Like, that's something that we just can't touch. And I'm sorry, but George Floyd, if you're high on every drug imaginable and you go use a 20, bro, go sit your ass down in jail. And when you sober up, come talk to me, bro. But other than that, you broke a law. He's a piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. He shouldn't have died, but he is trash.
And that's what bothers me, that we are, and there is going to be plaques and murals for George Floyd for 50 years to come. And when they teach 50 years from now what happened in 2020, the riots, the peaceful protests of 2020, they're going to talk about this man that was a father, that was all these different amazing things, when really he was a shithead. That
if I could say one thing.
Go ahead.
If I could say one thing.
Yeah.
Technically, these criminals don't even get the charge that they deserve, because you know what happens? They go to jail and they bond the fuck out. And they keep doing it repetitively.
9
Because
times
we keep putting loopholes into these. We keep putting loopholes into criminals getting off. They don't do the full extent of their charge. And the people that don't necessarily deserve to be in jail, they're the ones locked up for how many amounts of years? And Antifa and all these other crackheads can get in and out of jail, no problem.
Perfect segue before we hold on really, really quick, because that's perfect to talk about the Adam Toledo case involving the kid that is very specific to what she said. The kid that was the one that gave the gun to Adam Toledo, he was released after posting bond for felony charges. And it was a $15,000 bail, which is already bad enough that it was so low. But the worst part of it, the bail was paid by the help of a nonprofit Chicago community bond fund. This is a nonprofit helping a kid that, to me, should be the one guilty of murder. Roman, 21, was arrested earlier this month in Maywood in relation to a probation violation warrant. So he's already on probation, already violated. He is charged with felony reckless discharge of a firearm, felony unlawful use of a weapon by a felon, and felony endangerment of a child now in this case. Prosecutors have said Roman and Adam Toledo were walking together at 2:30 in the morning. So this is a gentleman that a nonprofit, ultra-liberal world we live in, a nonprofit let this kid out when he was the one that gave the gun that ultimately led to his death. No responsibility on the kid, no responsibility on the 21-year-old, only on the police officer for a split-second direction when he was a reaction when he was trying to go home at night. Sorry, that was my point on that one. Who was trying to talk before? That was my fault. Go ahead.
Let me jump in. Okay, a couple points on what you guys said. I like this a lot. First off, majority mob rule for punishment. Well, what is democracy? I would like to think, and I would like to hope, that democracy is in some way majority mob rule. So therefore, if we can democratize punishment in a certain way, it seems almost justice to me. Now, when we're looking at something like Suni said, an anarchic state, I don't think an anarchic state can exist for long, because we all have guns, dude, and someone is going to there is going to be a faction that comes together and asserts themselves
And
as
this
the
is
dominant
rift
power.
between the
Eventually,
Libertarians and the Republicans.
someone's coming in. Someone is coming in to take that power. It doesn't matter. You have a power vacuum. Someone's going to fill it. We're not going to kumbaya around the fire around pictures of George Floyd. Sorry, dudes. It's not going to happen. This is the U.S. It's too big of a melting pot for that with too many bullets. You throw bullets in a melting pot, they explode. Anyways, but, I mean, I don't really see a problem with democratizing punishment in a way because, who writes the laws? Well, the people that we democratically elect. And if they write laws that we don't like, and we choose to punish someone in a different way because they wrote a law that we didn't like, even though we elected them, well, it's still democracy in a way, to me.
So what Bucky said with the whole
No.
$20 bill being well, it's just no big deal. It is a big deal. It's ripping somebody off.
Yeah,
It is.
I think it's
It
ripping
absolutely
someone
is.
off.
And my point,
It is.
my point is not that counterfeiting should be legal. My point is that counterfeiting should be wholly illegal, right? But
The Fed
there's
should
a couple
stop
things.
it, not we should start it.
I don't think that we should be bending the justice system to mob rule. I think that it's important we actually have institutional barriers in place to keep the mob from deciding what is just and what is not just, because we have to have a set standard, and that's why that standard is innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Do I think Chauvin was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Probably not. I think it's a bad idea for us to be letting the mob sway our justice system and bend it to our will. It really is frustrating because it's a battle of perception, and perception actually matters more than reality. It doesn't matter what the reality is because people are going to vote based on their perception. And this is why narratives matter. This is why the culture war matters. Give me one moment.
Well, really quick, what Bucky was saying with oh shit, what was he just talking about? The kid made me laugh.
All right. I'm back.
Yeah, go ahead and finish up what you're saying.
Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the majority of people today that are mining history for disparities and discriminations are not searching for the truth. They're not searching for a fair trial. They're not searching for a representation of reality. They are instead searching for opportunities to exploit the sins of the past to justify undermining our society today, or for grievances that they can cash in on today at the expense of people and for the benefit of people who may or may not have anything to do with these sins now or historically or in any way whatsoever. Not only are the motives wrong, but almost invariably the methods are as well. Not only is the history and say the legacy of American racism selectively filtered beyond recognition, not only is the state of policing as it relates to racial groups in the country twisted beyond recognition, but the progress that we actually have made as a society is buried. The very notion of social justice is at odds with justice, because anytime you need to add a modifier to the word justice, you're actually detracting from the original meaning of justice. So it's a complicated situation because the perceptions that people have about this case aren't lining up with the evidence. And I have a strong suspicion that the vast majority of the people who are voicing their opinion didn't watch the trial. They didn't wait for any more evidence to come out. And this is indicative of a broader trend where the media shows you something that pushes their agenda primarily being ratings. And so they push something shocking. Why didn't they come out with the full video footage? Well, it's only partially because they're in league with the left-wing communists. It's also partially because if they were to put the full context out there, well, then it's just another bad situation involving a cop. But by putting only that selective piece out there, they can promote this idea that it is shocking and horrible and turn it into a crisis that lasts for months and months and months, and they can cash in on that.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that if we look back at the fact that as you just said and as I said in the beginning, the justice is kind of technically served. Like this is a unfortunate circumstance. It should have never been a big deal, and it's literally caused a complete stoppage of our country. I will disagree. I do, based on what I've seen in the trial. I know Casey and I talked a lot. I think Casey watched every minute of the damn trial. I know Suni watched a bunch as well. I think manslaughter was proven beyond reasonable doubt. I would say that was beyond reasonable doubt. That was proven. The rest is tough, but I do think the prosecution, if you're looking at this as a football game, prosecution won. They demolished the defense. The defense did not have enough answers, and the prosecution managed to find enough witnesses or enough key whatever witnesses in the medical field and police field to show that he was drastically at fault. I didn't know if it was going to be a murder charge or a murder conviction. Regardless, I do think there was enough evidence there. Suni, in terms of what Bucky just said, how does that jive with what we typically talk about, what you typically feel about in terms of the way the media has pressed this?
So I agree when you said the media is starting to tamper with our justice system, because I think I started out with that.
Yeah.
It tampers with our justice system as far as semantics. I won't say that laws are being bent, but there's definitely semantics going on. They use
really, you said it yourself that third-degree murder and involuntary murder via manslaughter are at odds with each other.
Yeah, but like I said, that's
just
semantics.
By the definition of the charges themselves, they're at odds with each other.
The average viewer is not up to par with the law like we all are. So they just see murder. But they don't understand that this is something that goes on in a lot of court cases where they tack on as many charges as they can to at least get the person on something. So like I said, yes, in a way, the media is playing with it, but it's more of a semantics thing. Like third degree literally means it wasn't intentional, but you murdered somebody, you killed somebody, but it wasn't intentional. Just kind of like unintentional second degree murder. You didn't intentionally do it, but you put him in a situation that was dangerous. It's semantics, in my opinion. I don't think that the media is changing the law, but I do think that they are picking and choosing what they say so that the mob doesn't overreact. But the mob is going to react anyway because there's been another shooting. So none of this really matters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say to them. They're going to go riot and tear stuff up anyway.
So what's going to happen tonight? Do you think that there is going to be protests that last all night, or do you think there will be violence and there will be looting tonight?
Both. We're going to have a calm night, like they're calm right now, and then all hell's going to break loose.
Does that prove
already
our point?
Started in Sacramento, by the way. Twitter is going nuts. The violence and looting has already started in Sacramento. Just saying.
Does that prove our point?
Yeah.
That nothing will appease this mass group that, again, there is 10 to 20 people that die a year, unfortunately, by the hands of police in an unjust situation. I'm not going to say unjust. 10 to 20 people die by the hands of police when they are not armed. Right. Only a handful of them are worthy of potentially charging the police officer with murder.
Right.
So we're gonna continue to listen to mass media tell us when we should destroy the country. Is that right?
Pretty much. You sum it up right there. The media controls the narrative. It's like the truth is in there somewhere in the middle, and they just build around it so that nobody will ever truly get to the truth.
What's weird is somebody put in the comments, they go, when do we start our riot? When do we start our protests? It seems to work. Where do we go? We did. We tried on January 6th, and that turned into a bastardized event, obviously, as we all know. Here's the other question I have when it comes to rioting. And we heard people on blowhorn saying this after the verdict was read. There is a certain element to the rioters, to the BLM groups, to the Antifa, that right now, because of this decision today, they are now being proven that they've said rioting works. Our riots' voices were heard. How dangerous?
Oh, they're saying it.
How dangerous is that, Cole?
Oh, man. Well, I don't know. I say this a lot, but I spend a lot of time on leftist Twitter ever since I went to Seattle and marched with Antifa to see what the hell they were up to. And, man, they are getting bigger and bigger. I mean, these accounts that are saying one was great, but it's not going to work until we have full abolition of police in prisons. And I'm just wondering what you think is going to happen. So first off, they decry right-wing mobs and death squads. That's what they call them, is militias. They say militias are stupid, but so are police in prisons. So let's get rid of all of them and hope that we can have a freaking kumbaya moment. I don't understand what these people are even thinking. Like, they have become addicted to destruction. They have become addicted to victimhood, and they have become addicted to the adrenaline of marching in the street no matter what it's for. I mean, I've watched them set people's shops on fire and spray paint things. They were just, these people were like animals. I hate to say it, man, but I saw people frothing at the mouth under their 2 masks every time I went to one of these marches.
You know, it's funny.
See, what these people have is a solution in search of a problem, right? They've already made up their mind. The solution is they want to tear this system down, right? They don't, and it's emotionally driven. They don't have any idea. Like when you actually, because we've been physically doxxed. So for those who don't know, Cole and I are legitimate journalists who get paid to go cover these Antifa protests. Sometimes they pan out to be just a bunch of sad commies falling asleep in the rain. Sometimes we're like 30 feet away when a guy gets shot. We catch it on film, and I have to go to the police station as a primary witness. But these people, they don't care about the circumstances. They've already made up their mind on their action of choice. And when the circumstances fit that narrative, great. When the justice system gives them what they want, they say, well, that's just an anomaly. The broader trend, by my statistics, which I measure very carefully to make sure that I get the results I want because it justifies my solution. They say it's just an anomaly. It's the larger trend justifies my solution. They're going to burn it down anyways. And these people, they spent so much time and energy organizing and getting their shields ready and getting their frozen cans of food and getting their bats and their spray paint. They're not taking a night off. Now they just feel like, oh, well, we're going to have to just, justify it to ourselves after the fact now.
Yeah, it's funny you said the juice and the soup. I don't know. I think Suni shared it as well. The guy that got interviewed with the soup can. Did you see that, Suni?
And he said he was taking it to feed his family or something.
And then they juxtaposed it with the Trump speech where he was like, they've got soup cans. They say it's for their family. These are projectiles. They throw them hard. And then on MSNBC, they were taught, you have the clip of them going, he thinks people dressed in black are going to show up and throw their soup cans for their family. This guy was being interviewed by one of the mainstream media with the soup can dressed in all black. And he even goes, oh, it's for my family, and winked at the camera. Holy shit, they are literally hiding in plain sight at this point, and they're fucking going, we hated Trump. He was a dick, but he's completely right. He's completely right. It's a soup can. It's a great projectile, and they're using these things.
We covered was put on by the Denver Socialists group. And they literally, their guide for the event was, we're having a canned soup drive for the homeless. And they basically just fed each other a little bit, and were otherwise just like every once in a while working up the courage to like throw a can of soup at the police and intentionally miss because they didn't have the cojones to actually peg the police officers. And then they would throw it, they would intentionally miss, and then they would all open their umbrellas and be like, brace, brace, brace. And the police officers would stand there and just roll their eyes and chuckle, and eventually they would be like, hold the line, okay, we're good.
Oh, they'd throw like one lazy pepper ball. The police would throw one lazy. For every soup can, they'd throw a lazy pepper ball, and these pussies would like run away. Like, oh my God, my throat. I was standing right there when one of the pepper balls went off, and I like sniffled a little bit. I was like, is that it? Like, this is what you guys are running away from? Not to be some big tough guy, but you have full body armor and a gas mask, and you're on the ground crying because of a pepper ball. Like,
Betas.
come on,
Betas,
guys.
Sunni, right?
Betas.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When in American history have we had Congress, White House, pretty much our entire government involved in a police-related incident? Is George Floyd the first?
Michael Brown.
Okay, Michael Brown. So 2 cases. AOC just put out a statement.
Oh, goody. You want me to bring it up? Why
Yeah,
not?
let's just play it. I'll let her expose her dumbass.
So no.
Hold on, let me run it back.
Can either
So, no.
Cole or Bucky please articulate what
This
the best
verdict
adults are?
is not justice.
What's that?
Frankly, I don't even think we call it full accountability because there are multiple officers that were there. It wasn't just Derek Chauvin. And I also don't want this moment to be framed as this system working because it's not working. And
Use your
that's
word.
what
Here comes
creates
the
a
gem.
lot of complexity in this moment.
So what does she want? If that's not justice, what does she want?
Every city, every town, burn the precincts to the ground.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I don't really know what they want. They want police gone. Rashida Tlaib said it, and
She's
Maxine
not
Waters.
the hero we want. She's the hero we
Maxine
They say
deserve.
it.
Waters backed her 100%. She said, "Whatever my colleague said, I agree with 100%." So we all know what they want. They want
So
the
this
police
is
gone.
I want to talk about Maxine Waters now. So Maxine Waters, and I don't know if Casey got the other quote, but the one that bugged me the most was the one about curfew. And she also said we should confront people. Part of this is salt in an open wound for me as somebody that was at the Capitol on January 6th and seeing just a different side of everything that happened. And then not even hearing Trump speaks at the end of his speech that people said was inciting a riot when he said fight like hell, which out of context, when he was talking about, we need to have our voices heard and fight like hell, that it was 2 very different things. Maxine Waters, you can't take out of context because you're listening to the whole soundbite of her actually inciting violence all the time. But she actually said, I came here just to stand with you. I'm not afraid. I'm not intimidated. I will continue to speak truth and power. My issue was her talking about curfew. She even talked about we're looking for a guilty verdict for murder, which is, again, if she should know, she's 82. She should know it, with her years in government, that this is actually an issue when it comes to trial on the legal side. And then she was asked, and this is, I quote, what do you think about this curfew tonight, referring to the 11 p.m. curfew at Brooklyn Center? And she said, I don't think anything about curfew. I don't think anything about curfew. I don't know what curfew means. Curfew means I don't want you all to stop talking. I want you to stop. It says, I want you to stop leading. I want you to stop gathering. I don't agree with that. And this was 20 minutes before curfew. Curfew is part of the law. It's semblance of keeping law together. If Trump would have ever said anything directly, I mean, when they impeached him, they were literally trying to find a way that his words could be spun. She is specifically telling people to defy the law, and she is a government official in our country. And she was in a state that was not even her own.
And that's the part that pisses me off. Like, why is a U.S. representative of California in Minnesota in the middle of a big protest at 11 o'clock at night, I think is what it was, 11 o'clock at night, right just before the curfew kicked in, which I think is set at 11. So it's dark, calling for people to take more action for justice, regardless of the decision.
You want to know why?
Well, it's inciting violence, in my opinion,
But do you want to know why she got away with it?
because she's black.
There you go.
Soon, go do it right now. Go do it.
That's why. And she did request for police escort afterwards. after you shit on him, but here, come escort me.
I just think it's funny. I just think it's funny. She's like, "What curfew? I'm not going to obey the curfew." And now she's going to go right back to Congress and tell people that they need to lock down their business because of, the public health crisis.
Right?
Oh my God. Honestly, I think it'd be fine if old Granny Maxine would come out and say this, if they would just unblock Trump on Twitter and just let him back on all the platforms. Because, dude, if you're going to, can we at least have, if we're talking about justice, let's have justice and at least be consistent with the way we treat our politicians with regards to what they say, when they say it, and how they say it. Like, I want Trump back on all the social media platforms. He can stir the pot however he wants. I mean, whatever. Freedom of speech. I'm all for whatever speech they want to put out there. If she wants to say it, great. But don't tell me that you're going to pick and choose based on your political party which person gets to say what and how much violence and for what side they get to perpetrate. It's like, if y'all could just be consistent, I'd be happy. But that's where it pisses me off, because logic dies with inconsistency.
It's exactly what I posted today, and it triggered a bunch of people on the left like, well, you didn't say that about Trump. And I'm like, I didn't have to say it about Trump because it was weird and I disagreed with it. And now all of a sudden Maxine Waters is doing the same thing, but no one's calling for inciting violence. So put her in cuffs.
I don't get it. So one of the statements said that, and I watched some of the news coverage afterwards, 907 people have been shot in less than 4 months in the city of Chicago. That's not killed, but shot. And they continued today in the post. It was literally like watching a press conference after a basketball game. They said people don't live, or I'm sorry, they were talking about how dangerous it is for kids to go home every day, how black kids are at risk. They can't go home from the playground. They can't go home from the grocery store. They can be killed, probably because they're also showing photos of Adam Toledo at the age of 8, not the fact that he was an adult size at 13. All these different things that are happening. They're inciting this concept that their lives are in danger. Add the LeBron James saying white people are hunting black people. Add all these different statements. The question becomes, should they be living in fear? Which I was rhetorical. I will answer it. No, not in terms of the police. People don't live in fear until they are told to live in fear. And if people actually looked at the statistics, and I know it's cold when you say murders and deaths to look at statistics, they should not be in fear of the police until they are told to be in fear of the police, which is what creates escalating violence between police. It makes it even worse. Picture if there was none of this. To me, there'd be 1 or 2 of these a year. We'd be much lower than the 10. So how is it that we actually start having a message and talk about the concept that the fear should be created around people in the own community and trying to find a way to fight back against the gangs and the violence? Or, for example, what Suni showed in the 7-year-old that died in a McDonald's parking lot, which is one of hundreds of these kind of things that happen per year, not just in Chicago, but in the whole United States. How do we get away from this rhetoric that makes it seem like black people should be afraid of police everywhere they go?
Well, number one, we talk about numbers. There's over, what is it? Casey, let me know if this sounds right to you. 40 million interactions between the police and the public every year. And you have something in like a 1 in 10,000, 10,000 being every time a police officer attempts an arrest, 1 in 10,000 times that you have an interaction with the police and an arrest is attempted, a shot of getting killed. And that doesn't even bring in whether it was a justful killing or not. So you're more likely to get struck by lightning than to get killed by the police.
Even while being arrested.
There was a study by Roland Fryer, who was a black economist at Harvard, who found that police officers were 25% less likely to shoot a black suspect than a white suspect, but 17% more likely to go hands on a black suspect. And the suspicion is that because of this narrative, that the only reason you're being pulled over as a black and American is because of systemic racism on the part of the police, then you are more likely to be in fear. You are more likely to act in a way that is panic-induced. You are more likely to be defensive, resistant. And given that the only way for the police to deal with someone like that is to implement more force, bad things are more likely to happen. And this, we have, I think the problem is beyond the narrative. I think the problem is twofold. Number one, they've castrated the Second Amendment in these communities. Imagine, if you would, if the law-abiding citizens in these communities were all wielding firearms and training with personal defense courses like is so common in other parts of the country, what would happen to violent crime? There's a reason why 93% of mass shootings are committed in gun-free zones, because criminals want easy targets. Predators target the most defenseless people they can. And yeah, there are things we could do to help with the economic situation. My personal belief is we have to help with it. If you want America to be a wealthy country, a truly wealthy country, we can't have pockets of the population who are dependent on government handouts and cannot move up the economic ladder. Some of this comes down to personal responsibility, valuing the family, valuing education, but a lot of it comes down to Democrat policies that have just ruined the Black community. It's so interesting to me to hear Democrats railing against systemic racism when they have been the system in every single one of these communities for something like 50 to 70 years. Every single one of them, a complete monopoly on political control in the hands of one party. And that party turns around and they have to blame racism, because if they didn't have the scapegoat of racism,
they might have to face up. Look at their policies.
To their own policies.
When we were watching the conference earlier, and we were watching Joe Biden, my mom and I were watching it side by side next to each other, and she goes, I wish that we could do the side-by-side of Joe Biden in the 90s, not that long ago, 25 years ago, talking about racial jungles, talking about the animals, the super predators. Like, let's put that side by side. It was only 20 years ago. How easily it forgets. And honestly, I get we all evolve as people, but to completely disregard the past is mind-boggling to me. Suni, you've got, obviously, as we know, Black children. Because of your voice and who you are, but how would you tell another Black family to not worry about, or how would you just approach this conversation? Best way to ask. Mute. I think it's the other
okay.
mute. Yeah, there you go.
Well, first, they don't trust any type of government, anything. So if you go to you go into these specific people talking about Democrats don't care about you, and we're like, neither do Republicans. They don't want to hear that. The best thing that you can do is to have conversation. It's a deep rooted issue in the Black community with race, and us talking about political parties it's not gonna number one turn them off from thinking that cops are against them. If anything, it's gonna push them even more, because they're used to a coon is what they call us, or a white man coming and speaking something that goes against everything that we've been taught. So you're already set up for failure from jump. I think just having conversations like we did with Tiffany, they have to be willing, number one. Tiffany was dead set on it being a racial thing. No, officers did this because he was a minority. It's wrong. At the end of the conversation, she's okay. Well, I never thought of it that way. The way Casey explained it, because he was willing to just sit there and have a 2-hour conversation with her, she finally got on. But that was just one issue. You are going in and picking apart 1,000 different tangles that Democrats have been putting in there for 57 years. It's gonna take us getting involved in the culture, just like Candace Owens did. That's why I applaud her. She embedded herself in the culture, whether you liked it or not. She kind of did what Trump did before Trump ever did it. If we have more like Candace Owens, more people not afraid, more people willing to talk, more people willing to take the backlash, we can get somewhere.
Totally gorgeous.
We can get there, but that's what it's going to take. And it's going to take the Republican Party, since they're the ones who so-called want to fix the issues, being inclusive of all types of Black folk, not just the polished ones that look good on TV for you, but the ones that can translate and speak to the inner cities. Like, the only representation of a Black conservative that we have is Candace Owens and Brandon Tatum. Not every Black person relates to Candace or Tatum. They just don't.
Yeah.
So talking. That's the only way this changes.
Yeah.
Talking.
And we actually need to the first step in changing someone's mind is developing a relationship with them and being in a position of trust. Because everybody has a certain level of discrimination and prejudice. And I'm not saying racial discrimination and prejudice. I mean, they're looking at the world through a lens of personal experiences and narratives that they've absorbed. And so when you see someone, whether you know it or not, you are making biased decisions about that person. And so many times people can hear something. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, being essentially lifelong Democrats who got, red-pilled into where whatever ambiguous conservatarian spot we are now. I grew up in a conservative family. I was hearing conservative opinions my entire life, but I never actually heard them because I never really listened. And so I think the first step in actually changing someone's mind is to, number one, intend to be their friend. Go in there with the intention of actually being their friend. Now, this is totally different than if you're like publicly debating someone. If you're publicly debating someone, morally chastise that person, just castrate them. But if you actually want to change someone's mind, you have to go in it with the intention of genuinely being their friend and tolerating their opposing opinions, and then focus on finding some common ground. And once you have some common ground, and I would say that common ground is the very predatory nature of the government itself. I would add that would be my opinion. But once you establish some common ground, then start attacking common problems. And after you've gone a couple conversations, 3 or 4 or 5, 10, 15, 20 conversations with this person, then you can start swaying them a little bit. It's almost impossible to win over a liberal if you go over there and you try to put a MAGA hat on their head.
Yeah,
right.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
You got to get at someone's epistemology. And what that means is you have to get at the root of their belief system. Because the thing is, the root of a person's belief system dictates every other belief that bubbles up. Their system of values it's the core of what they have. So you need to figure that out. You need to be the type of person who could analyze someone to say, I see your chain of reasoning, and I'm going to find the link in which your reasoning was illogical. I'm going to tell you why you thought it was illogical and tell you that it's not your fault, but it's the fault of someone else who has fed you lies, right? And this is how you find common ground with people, is you retrace their train of reasoning back to that point in the media, back to that point in the culture, back to that point in their stupid university education and their women's studies degree, where they were fed a piece of information that is demonstrably wrong. And you can work from there. But you really do have to find that common ground. That is important, because if you can't be someone's friend, if you can't make someone want to believe what you have to say, they won't believe it no matter how right you are. They might believe the other thing just to spite you.
You guys pretty much talked exactly about how we started really having these conversations with BetheChange, where I always related it to the Black Lives Matter and the All Lives Matter group. And I was like, it's just, if you want to create real change, taking somebody that's hurting, whether or not it's their fault or not, whether or not it's truth or not, whether it's what you're seeing. If I was somebody that did not research myself and I was a Black American, I would think, based on what I see on the news, that shit, we're getting all killed right now. Like, this is a situation. But so this person's hurting, and then all the people chanting all lives matter at them, it really didn't do anything. It was meeting fire with fire instead of, I understand you're hurting. Tell me what's up. Let's have a conversation. Listen, have empathy, slowly take time, and then say, but look at these facts. And they'll say, no, I don't, that's not a fact. And you say, well, it kind of is, but I get why you feel that way. And slowly but surely, that's how you change people. That's how you have that conversation. You can't meet them with a MAGA hat and throw it on and be like, trust me, he's better for you. Like it doesn't work that way. So this is what I want to spin into with this. And then we're gonna wrap it with Cash's what he wrote, because I know a lot of people are talking about Cash right now. Cash would be a great voice to have out here. Him and Sunni together talking about what's going on in the country would be tremendous, but unfortunately not here. So with that said, I posted something on my page that created a little bit of a stir, and it was just, and this is as simply as I said it. I said, here's an idea. Want to have an impact and show that Black lives do in fact matter. Take the thousands of people rioting and start going through the hood and burn down gangbangers' homes. If they own TVs and Nikes, they're all yours. Problem solved. Now, that was supposed to be a little bit satirical and a little bit funny, but at the same time, the purpose was to drum up conversation, and it actually kind of worked. There's two things that scared me. When it came to me referring to gangbangers, people were commenting that they said, somebody said, sure, as long as you make sure to stop the boys in blues homes too, because they're the biggest gangbangers out there. I don't understand how people are equating a few bad police officers with the gang community that is killing 2,000 plus Black Americans per year. Sunni, can I have you go on this one if you don't mind? Mute.
Do I keep pressing that, or is that like?
It's not me.
You?
You're
Are you
bad.
sure?
Either.
It's not me. It is just a disclaimer to everybody. It is 420 and it is Sunni. All right, go ahead.
Damn, no, you did not come for me like that on the live. Let me get myself together now. First of all, no. I think it's a defense mechanism. When you start asking for people to be accountable for their shit, they get real defensive. What you mean by thugs? Like, did they take it as if you were saying something racial? Maybe I missed a certain part.
Yeah, they took it as me saying, there was a couple of people, because they were saying gangbangers and that I was taking responsibility off anybody but gangbangers. I think they took it racial. I don't know.
It's a defense mechanism. It's really what you think of yourselves. If you hear the word thug and you automatically think Black people, then that's something within them that's wrong. Like, why do you automatically think Black people? There are plenty of white thugs out there that we identify as Antifa all the time. So it sounds like a PP to me, personal problem. Just people in their feelings. That's it. They're just in their feelings. You said something and you brought up Nike's number one. You brought up something else that's synonymous to Black folks. And then you put thug on it and they're like, oh, it's you trying to be funny. It's still in their feelings.
TVs and Nikes, because we've seen the Nike store in the last week that have just been taken out. And we've seen a bunch of people running out with TVs. So that was kind of the tongue-in-cheek joke. And
it's true though. It's Black folks going in Walmart taking them damn TVs. Like, come on.
That was one thing during the middle of the George Floyd riots that people were starting to avoid. They kept saying, like, you can't talk. Even Cash was saying, "I can't talk about Black folk like this because right now it's all white people destroying things." But right now we are back to Black people destroying things in celebration.
They're doing it together.
Let's talk about Chinese burning Nikes in China because they're protesting. How about that? Let's put all this together.
I know you guys like talking about China. I do. I know that
a lot.
Yeah. So the other thing, and this is one comment that I was like, this is a white woman. What I miss? Hold on. What I miss?
No.
That's great. We should have had on Doobie Smoker for 420. I didn't even think about it. Son of a bitch.
It's all right.
That was my bad. So this is the one statement from a white woman on a post that was shared by a gentleman that was going to be on this show. He'll be on another one, I think. And I'm literally like, holy shit, is this real life? So this was her statement. She said, please explain to me like I'm in kindergarten how gangbangers are a threat. While white guys, while white guys who walk onto government property and protest with AR-15s aren't a threat. And please excuse the whole peaceful protest, as we'll never see eye to eye on a peaceful protest turned sour versus an armed protest given celebrity status. We're not going to talk about her grammar, which was fucking atrocious. But in all reality, What the fuck is she talking about? Like, she's essentially saying
Nothing.
gangbangers aren't a threat when we're
Yes, they
talking
are.
about white people with ARs. First off, the protests at the Capitol did not have anybody with an AR at it. It did not have anybody with an AR.
Listen.
Go ahead.
Say her name. Okay. Her name is Jaslyn Adams. Natalia. How many kids? I can name off 30 kids that have died in Chicago, bro. Say their names. Gang members did that. Not white supremacy, not a white cop, not a white person, a Negro. Okay. Brown skin, black, in a gang. Killed a kid. That's what you should have met her with. Why don't you tell me who's committing the murders in your communities? It's 176 people dead in one city in 1 year. And we want to talk about 20 in a year in isolated events across the United States of America. Are you serious? Are you serious? Black people have such.
Let's talk about the real. Let's talk about the real criminals.
Is real. It's
Let's talk about the real
ridiculous.
criminals.
That stuff pisses me off. It
That-
really
that
does.
That one shocked me. I was like, what the fuck? What's the real issue, Bucky?
It's the government. Okay. Contrary to the notion that economic progress for Black Americans accelerated after the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the war on poverty. In the 20 years preceding the 1960s, the Black poverty rate had fallen 40 points from 87% to 47%. There was only an 18% reduction in the poverty rate in the 20 years following the passage of the welfare state. This is to say that in the 20 years after the passage of the welfare state, the rate at which poverty was falling slowed to only half the pace to which it was already falling. Yeah, gangbangers are a crime, but in the 1960s, the single motherhood rate in the Black community after the implementation of the welfare state went from 22% to something around 80%. I mean, people say the average varies, but in some communities, it's as high as 85 or 90% of children are growing up without a father in the home. Obama was the one that pointed out that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. And this isn't something that's exclusive to America. This happened all over the world, wherever these policies are tried, regardless of the racial makeup of the group. This happens in poor white English communities, including a drastic increase in crime and even gang culture. So yeah, the liberals do kind of have a point that's saying that it's gangbangers or it's thugs. People are actually influenced by their environment a little bit, but what they fail to realize is that liberals tend to be at the core of all of these problems, right? So back in the first half of the 20th century, the public housing projects were like overwhelmingly safe and clean, right? However, alongside the welfare state passed by President Johnson, Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, supported roundly by the self-proclaimed compassionate liberal intellectuals, pursued lenient on crime policies in the 1960s. And the popular premise was that the police were overly involved in Black communities and that more lenient policing and these new slimy, shiny anti-poverty programs could usher in a new era of peace and socioeconomic improvement, which sounds familiar, doesn't it? However, tragically, the very same year that this lenient on crime policy was implemented, the violent crime rate rose like 139% and the murder rate doubled. And, this lends itself to the Ferguson effect, which is another phenomenon to where every time we have these riots and the anti-police rhetoric comes out, the police pull back from proactively policing, because if they see someone who's engaged in something suspicious, they're not going to go proactively stop a crime before it happens. They don't want to be accused of racism. So they'll just sit back and wait till someone calls 911, knowing full well that it was very likely that suspicious person they just saw, but they were afraid to go interact with because they didn't want to be accused of racism. And now we're in a situation where the number one cause of death for young black men in America is homicide. Homicide. I mean, a black man is like 2,000 times more likely to be the victim of violent crime in his own community than he is to be shot by the police. And a police officer, I mean, most of these police officers are martyring themselves.
Statistically, to be killed by the
18.5 times more likely to get shot by a criminal in these communities than they are to be the criminal shooting an innocent person.
So, Bucky, we got to be careful because we do the same thing. So we always have to make sure the words are correct. So more likely to be shot, not killed, because there is this. We like to be as good with the statistics if people are watching because they're going to regurgitate it and they're going to say it. So they're around 2,000 times as likely to be shot in the communities by another like a gang member or by another member of the black community than by a police officer. To be killed, it's actually if you talk unarmed, yes. So it's just a gray area, whatever. Suni, go ahead.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
That's what I said. I put it in the private chat. I said, what were you going to say so I can remind you? Because I knew you were going to forget.
I don't know. I'm just tired of like placing blame. I'm to the point now where it's time to make people look, you're either going to be accountable for your shit and I can help you and you can find avenues to get out, or you can stay there and suffer and die. That's really where I'm at. It's like, not everybody's going to hear me. Not everybody's going to listen, but at least let me show you a way to get out. And although we have systems set in place designed to keep you stuck, you absolutely have a choice. That's the only thing that Democrats don't give. They don't give them a choice. They paint their realities for them and say, this is what it's like. This is what you can get. Some people make it out, but it's probably because it was kissing the white man's ass. Like, it's just ridiculous stuff that goes on. So just give an option. Yes, this is there, but you can get around it. You don't have to be in this situation. Well, it might be a little bit harder for you to get out. Absolutely. But anything hard is worth having.
Cole, go ahead.
And, the question is, what the hell are we going to do next? I mean, I'm going to share a weird anecdote here. And I remember when my geography teacher 5 years ago said, within 5 years, Yemen is going to collapse because of what happened, because of demographics and because of world events. And look what's happening. Yemen has collapsed already. And I'm thinking back, when did all these riots start? What is the true impetus to everything? Was it that dude on George Floyd's neck? Or was it the fact that the economy was in shambles, people's businesses were closing, COVID was rampaging through, and everything was on top of it? I think it really comes down to things still being closed, people still not being able to go anywhere, people still being told that they're going to accept the new normal for 1, 2, however many more years. I used to be the guy who says strap on 2 masks and stay at home for the next 5 years, but I'm really starting to think here that we need to get the hell off this. Oh, okay, let's fix racial justice once and for all, and let's look at the root causes of all these protests, of all this society in shambles right now. I know that's a tangent, but it just came to me that all this stuff started happening at the same time, right?
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, 100% valid. Let's see. I think let's see. We talked a little bit about Maxine. We talked about Toledo. Has anybody changed their opinion on the Toledo shooting at this point?
No, it was a tragic situation. Adam Toledo's family failed him long before Chicago PD got to him. As cold as callous as that sounds, it's the truth. It's the truth, man. It hurt everybody to watch him die like that, but he should have never been outside. And that 21-year-old should have never gave him a gun. He needs to be in jail as well. Like, this is crazy.
No, he's out.
out.
Nonprofit got him out. No big deal.
Oh yeah, I forgot you said that at the beginning of the show. We don't hold criminals accountable, just cops.
Unreal.
$1,500 and you're out. So that's so
crazy, man.
15,000. Oh wait, is it 10%?
10%.
It's 10%. Yeah, it's 10%.
I'm gonna read Cash's post, then we're gonna have final words from everybody. I think this is a really good show, solid show. But yeah, I've been going back and forth about everything going on, and I was terrified. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen if he gets manslaughter. The country's been burning down the last 6 days. There's no way to not see that. You had Riot, you had Toledo, and you've got this court case, and it's we're at a very different time. And I know some people said earlier in the comments, like, when do people start fighting back? And I honestly, if there would have been a not guilty verdict, it would have been the beginning of that to me. And I'm in a lot of ways, I'm happy that that isn't where we're at. I think that it would have been escalated and much, much worse. But Cash and I went back and forth, and I said, "Do you want me to say anything to people on Truth Will Set You Free tonight?" He said, "Tell them I said never give up on doing what's right, even when we see so many people doing wrong and being praised for it. No matter how bad or dark this world may seem to be getting, keep being the good light. Never know who may be watching or who you may lead out of the dark. Be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to get angry. When faced with negativity, be positive. A soft response turns away anger. Never think that being meek is the same as being weak. Meekness is simply someone who knows the power they have, but having it under control. God's got us, y'all. It may seem bad, but I promise you it's all going to be as it's supposed to, because God don't make mistakes. You know what I see happening in the world? Opportunity. It's an opportunity to show love, faith, and perseverance and obedience. I have so much I want to share with all of you, and I will in my next letter. But until then, I want you to know something. It may look like the world is in its darkest hour of our lifetime, just like my life seems the same, yet I find strength. Strength to see beyond what's in front of me and still try and lead the right way while not participating in the panic of circumstances or be like people without faith. I see what's to come. Hope is my night vision in the dark times of the world and my personal situation. So I don't worry and I don't stop being who God created me to be. In fact, it's made me better. So make sure to keep hope alive so you can see in the dark too. Love you guys always." That's from Cash. Mic drop on Cash. Well said. And that's how we typically want to have our conversations on this show, and realize that in the end we have to try to find the positive. This was a very negative show, probably more negative than usual, but in the end, we really do have to realize that by sharing truth, by letting people see what we're seeing, and as much as we want to shake people and go, "How do you not see that 15 people died compared to 2,500? Why? Why do you not understand this?" As much as we want that, we just have to continue to have the conversations from a place. And this is funny coming from Cash, because I'm the one that always was the one telling him, like, you got to take it on the chin sometimes and let them beat us up until they realize that they can't punch anymore, and then they start to listen. So that's our mission on that. And if everybody that donated, we did make it to the $15,000. I'm working with GoFundMe to make sure I can pull that money. They're being interesting. But it should not be a problem. Anyways, let's get some final words from Casey first. Casey, what do you got?
Buckle up, guys. This summer's gonna be fun. And eventful like last year, it seems. We're setting the stage now, but be ready and pay attention to who's running in your area. 2022 is coming, and we got to remove everybody that needs to be removed. Everyone.
Suni, you and I, we're not going to announce. Maybe we'll announce on Concert Vengers tomorrow night, but our event is named. It is set for the 22nd and 23rd. So make sure we'll do a show at Concert Vengers tonight. Tomorrow night. We will talk about it, probably 9:00 Eastern time. So that event is ready to rock and roll, and we're excited to say the name. And that means, Kaylee, you got to have the banner ready by tomorrow night. I hope you're watching. Good talk. Suni, go ahead. Give us some final words.
Shoot. Everybody just needs to prepare themselves for they're going to see these next couple years. And like Casey said, I think people need to really understand how important 2022 is. Enough of the crying about the voting system. States are doing stuff about that. They have changed so many voter laws and implemented a lot of different things. So do like the Democrats do. That's why they kick our ass in every election. Even in the election Trump won, they out-campaign the right on so many levels. So many levels. So just get involved. We're still working on that list to find everybody's representatives and who's running, who's not running. And stay vigilant. Don't fall for anything. Research.
Holla. All right, let's go to Bucky.
All right. Well, guys, it was such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. I hope to do it again real soon. I would just like to encourage us to think more carefully about what actions we want to see implemented, and is that really a winning strategy? Remember that in a democratic republic where politicians win elections, you actually win elections by persuading people to vote for you. So that should be the key to fighting. Mobs are never the answer. Mobs are just an excuse to get together and act out your worst instincts under the guise of having no responsibility for your actions. We need to take responsibility for our actions, primarily local, and in our daily lives, not being afraid to speak. If conservatives and libertarians are afraid to speak, we might as well wrap the flag up into a ball, throw it to ground, and stomp all over it, because it's over. We've already lost. We need to be doing what you guys are doing every day, engaging with people, having conversations, and being willing to actually disagree and try to find some common ground, and trying to persuade people that our values and our beliefs are actually worth defending. We actually need people who think differently, who can identify different problems and solve them in different ways. So real fighting means making the movement broader, not just angrier. Keep that in mind. We actually need progressives pointing out discriminations and disparities, and trying to push society to provide a safety net for the disadvantaged. We need conservatives digging their heels in and making sure that we are we're not taking our traditions for granted, because there really is a silent wisdom in our traditions that have been passed down through the generations. And we need that to keep our society stable. And we need libertarians reminding us that at the core of all of these problems, we have a government which, in the very nature of government, tends to expand and utilize violence and monopolize the ability to manipulate, to manifest force. So we should always be digging our heels in and fighting for liberty, because you can't take personal responsibility if you don't have the freedom to do so. Guys, be nice to each other. We love you, and God bless America.
Well said, Bucky. Cole, go for it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for having us on. First off, it has been an absolute pleasure being here with everybody tonight. And Suni, I want to touch on what you said a little bit. The left out-campaigns the right, guys, because their rhetoric is the most to the core. They say right and white equals racist, okay? Guys, we need to smash that equal sign. We need to get rid of all these crazy ideas that people have, and we need to understand that when our arguments are strong, we are strong. Guys, if you believe in your values, if you believe in your arguments, if you believe in whatever cause that you are fighting for politically, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to share, and don't be afraid when someone tries to yell at you. Like Cash said, you can give them a smile, guys. You can shake their hand and say, let's have a conversation. Watch what happens next time someone gets in your face and you disarm them with a smile, right? You're going to win over the entire crowd. So this is important. And remember, guys, a lot of this and what the media feeds you is a big distraction. We really need to keep our heads on straight and look at what the government is doing, what kind of laws they're passing, and whether or not they're going to open this country back up again. Because remember, guys, it's been a year. Whoever can get the vaccine, whoever wants it can get it. It's time to get things open again. It's time to get the economy rolling again. And it's time to come back together as a country, kick some ass, and kick the asses of the forces that are trying to bring us down. So let's unite together. Let's do that, and let's keep the truth alive.
Well said. Casey got into that one. Love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I like Suni's phrase as usual on this one. We got to make America think again, and it's not an easy task, and a lot of it comes from listening, understanding, and yes, we can't ignore progressives, period. Just the same way as we have to be better than. The other side is saying don't listen to anything a conservative has to say. No, there is positives in everything that we do, and it takes just debate and arguments. But in those debates and arguments, we are debating ideas and concepts. We are challenging ideas and concepts. We are sometimes hating other people's ideas, but we are not hating other people. And that is the huge thing that we have to remember. And even with our group that is predominantly conservative, when you watch, remember when you are arguing with people, that smile that Cole talked about, kindness. That's the only way, because ultimately you're just feeding into the fuel when you're like, oh, probably because you have the reading level of a 2-year-old. It's not going to get you anywhere. It doesn't. It doesn't work that way. It works when we have conversation. If we're truly fighting for a greater goal, that's the only way we're going to do it. Later tonight, Suni is going to be going live. She's going to be talking about riots, the protests. She's going to be showing them. I think she's going to be doing live stream. And she's going to talk a little bit more about the newest shooting, which is the one I believe in Ohio with the 16-year-old, correct, Suni?
Yeah. Columbus, Ohio.
And I don't have a change makers tomorrow night, which means I will be doing, since I'm late from last week, What Made You Smile today with Denzel. I'm going to have him pop on. So we're going to do that. And I've got a video also from Cash's baby girl. That Erica shared that I will bring on as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, unite, don't fight, be a streetlight, because only you could be the change you wish to see in the world. And when you get too stressed out, because, God, it's been one hell of a month, just remember to pray, America. Thank you guys for being on the show. Thank you to our crew from Liberty Revolt Media. As always, Suni and Casey. Bye, Felicia.
Bye.